Hello and welcome back to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Dumbest Moments of the Week. Today we've got lots of new AOC dumb moments, which also involve her new so-called squad. This group is comprised of 4 freshman congresswomen of color, who of course are also radical Democrats and social justice warrior supporters. The name squad is supposed to make them sound cool or something, like they're hip and relevant, but really, they just come across as a quartet of stupidity, and like they're 4 weak girls who need to band together in order to prop up their bad, terrible, identity politic-driven ideas that are not only ruining this country and dividing our people, they're also destroying the Democratic Party from within. Can't say I'm too sympathetic about the latter part of that because it really seems like the Cortez squad is not only radicalizing and pushing Democrats further to the left's extremes, but also they could be single-handedly giving Trump another win in his upcoming re-election bid coming next year in 2020. And also, the Dems could even lose control of the House over the stupid squad controversy. Not a good look. And this SJW Democratic Lady Squad has again 4 members, 2 which we've already heard of extensively, starting with of course AOC, and then Ilhan Omar, her good old buddy. And then there's the other 2, the less important and less popular ones, but they're equally as stupid, those being Ayanna Pressley and Rashida Tlaib. Put them all together and these 4 ladies are the new crew to represent Democrats in Congress. And I have to say, to quote Shania Twain, they don't impress me much. And for another point here, for all the left likes to talk about supposedly caring about representation and having our country's leaders reflect the people of the nation, well, you got to admit, we're not looking very represented here at all. There's no white people in this squad, of course, and no Christians or men for that matter either. What we do have is 4 angry, bitter women, 2 of which are Muslims and the others are not religious, unless you count their strict devotion to social justice warrior and identity politics. That's almost basically a religion these days. Regardless, I think you guys get the point. And this sort of group hypocritically pretending to represent America, even though they've left out most of the people that are here, well, that's a pretty good way to sum up how stupid and dishonest all their premises really are. Next, let's look at a political cartoon that pretty much sums up what's been happening with this squad and President Trump this week. Here you can see the 4 girls on the left, the Democratic Cortez squad, and they're all complaining and attacking America, of course. They hate us. Tlaib all the way on the left says the Holocaust gives her a calming feeling. Meanwhile, Omar, the second one from the left, she attacks Jews for being too rich or something. Next, AOC says the US has concentration camps. And finally, Pressley says if black people don't agree with her, their opinions aren't valid. Meanwhile, Trump all the way on the right, he responds with a simple and natural reaction to all this anti-American hatred. If you guys hate this country so much, why don't you just leave? No one's stopping you. But this of course prompts the squad to ironically call Trump the one that's anti-American. And they call him a racist too, because of course they do. Now, this cartoon may seem a little over the top and exaggerated, but I assure you, almost all of these statements and lines, word for word, can be supported by real evidence. The only thing truly exaggerated here are the drawings of the characters, although I do find these ladies of the squad just as repulsive or more in real life. But don't just take my word for this. Here's an article discussing Rashida Tlaib's calming comments regarding the Jewish devastation and murders during the World War II tragedies. Yeah, Rashida Tlaib is calmed by the idea of that. Her being a devout Muslim is probably the source of her anti-Semitism too, surely. And I think anyone with an ounce of integrity would see this kind of opinion on that tragedy is pretty offensive. I've certainly been called anti-Semitic for much less than this. If you question Jews at all or criticize them or make fun of them in any way, shape, or form, you instantly get labeled as an anti-Semitic or racist online. Well, at least if you're conservative. So surely, if you condone this kind of attack on the Jews, you would be called anti-Semitic too, right? Well, it shouldn't be too surprising that at this point, sometimes the answer to that is actually no. You see, this all depends on what side you're on and what your identity is, at least according to the SJW outrage mobs and according to the mainstream media who kowtows to them. Those people will all attack and slander conservative men like myself for doing literally nothing, but at the same time, their favorite and protected women like those in the squad, they can basically get away with murder, or in this case, they can get away with saying that murder gives them a calming feeling. Next, let's move on to Ilhan Omar and talk about her anti-Semitism too. We've spoken about and done videos on this cringy loser a couple times before, so to put it briefly, Omar is a radical Muslim too, who left Somalia as a child to get a better life in America. But despite that location change, she still shit talks the United States and calls us racist and sexist every chance she gets. She also leans hard into her Muslim roots as well. Omar's even been seen laughing and smiling when talking about the terrorist group called Al-Qaeda. In fact, a recent video shows that when Omar was asked to respond to Trump's claim that she supports Al-Qaeda, well, Omar wouldn't answer that question and wouldn't condemn Al-Qaeda either. You know, Al-Qaeda, the terrorist group who has killed many people across the globe. Yeah, Omar won't condemn them for some reason, probably because she's Muslim too. Regardless, here's a video of that awkward and very telling moment.
Can you respond to some of the president's specific claims, most notably that you're a communist and that you're pro-Al-Qaeda?
You might have noticed how when he said, go back to where you came from, there was an uproar through the...
Just say you don't like Al-Qaeda and you're not a communist. It's not that hard, lady. And it's these kinds of delayed, cryptic, dodgy answers that make people think you support terrorists in the first place. And let's be real and frank here. Omar still has many relatives living in Somalia and Africa, so her being scared to condemn terrorists around there actually kind of makes sense. But that's not to defend her, and it's hard to pity her too, because Omar did run for and win public office here in the United States, despite having her allegiances elsewhere.
Because every single person who's brown and black at some point in their life in this country heard that. Now, when he made the comment, I know that every single Muslim who has lived in this country and across the world has heard that comment. And so I will not dignify it with an answer.
Well, you're actually answering the question right now, and you're doing it with a broad, unprovable assumption that's bordering on a flat-out lie. Not to mention, you're refusing to condemn a known global terrorist group once again. But back to her other claims. I highly doubt every single black or brown person in America has heard someone say to them, go back to where you came from, especially African Americans, since they're pretty much from here. The only reason this squad full of losers have heard people say that to them often is because they're always attacking America and hating on us. So it's natural for people to hear that and think and say, hey, why don't you just leave this place if you hate it so much? For example, let's take it to another realm, and let's say you are with your friends and you go out for the weekend to a bar someplace. You decide to try a new pub, but after you get settled in there a few minutes, about an hour later, you start to hate the place. Now, if you then go around that bar complaining, saying the music is too loud and people there are racist and you don't even like the drinks, well, if you keep doing that, then the people that are still there enjoying themselves would probably say, hey, why don't you just leave? And most people would just leave and find a bar that they like better, but these girls in the squad, they're the kind of people that would stay and trying to ruin that bar and ruin everyone else's good time too. So I think you get the point. The point is, if black and brown people are acting happy and appreciative of living in the United States, most people are not going to tell them to leave here and go back to where they came from. But if they're constantly complaining and calling us racist and offensive things, then of course people will suggest they should go. And that's what happened to Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and this whole so-called squad. And to verify Omar's anti-Semitic one more time, and to clarify her Jewish money is controlling Congress comments specifically, well, this article from the Times of Israel goes over that stuff extensively. And needless to say, that cartoon portrayal of Omar from before and the portrayals of the other ladies, well, they've been pretty spot on so far. Next, let's move on to the ringleader of this whole operation now, the Dem from the Bronx and the namesake for this whole series of videos on this channel, and the girl who brought this whole squad together in the first place, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's of course said many dumb things in the few months she's been in Congress already, but surprisingly enough, this week she has managed to get even stupider than before. First, in addition to calling Trump's response to the squad racist, despite his comments not even mentioning race, well, AOC decided to attack Trump for something else, calling him a sexist and female abuser, despite of course him not being guilty of that either. Don't know why these Democrats think this failed strategy from 2016 will work now for some reason, but here we are in current year, and people are calling the president racist, sexist, and a woman abuser for no goddamn reason. AOC's tweet here with the accusation says, hey Mr. President, remember when you bragged about sexually assaulting women, talking about feeling their breasts and genitals because when you're a star they let you do it, and then you impose DOE policies to make it harder for sexual assault survivors to report assault. Well, honey, I hate to break it to you, but you basically debunked yourself in the same tweet. How can Trump be bragging about sexual assault when he's also saying those women let him touch them? them. It's not assault if someone allows you to touch them, you dummy. So no matter how much you hate the president and wish for these lies to be true, they just aren't. I'm sorry, but the president got laid because he was famous many years ago, and women letting the president touch them is not a crime, and it's not sexual abuse in the slightest. And these kinds of nonsensical reactionary responses from the squad ladies has really showed how triggered and angry they actually are, and how much Trump derangement syndrome they suffer from. Many are even saying that Trump's comments here and him clapping back at the squad, well, this could be another one of his 4D chess moments. Much like how when Trump defended Nancy Pelosi last week, forcing her to push away from him in order to keep her Democratic base, well, so too is this "you can leave" comment being directed at the Dems as a way to tear their party apart from the inside out. Previously, there was a sort of fracture going on within the Democrats too. Many of their old guard realized that these young freshman Democrat minorities in the squad, they're pushing their party further to the left, which will also lose them votes in political elections and offices in the future. They're getting too extreme for anyone to vote for them. But instead of letting the Dems break off the squad and try and save themselves from self-destruction, Trump's comments are actually pushing them back together. So the squad will stay with the Democrats at large and eventually take them all down with them. And if you thought Ilhan Omar not condemning the violent murderers at Al-Qaeda wasn't cringy enough, well, here's a video of AOC refusing to condemn the domestic terrorists who attacked and bombed an ICE facility just last week.
Will you condemn Antifa for the attack in Washington?
We'll be making statements.
It's easy to condemn a terrorist attack. Will you be condemning Antifa?
We'll be making statements.
They firebombed an American facility. Will you condemn them?
Seems like a pretty easy question with a very easy answer. Of course, a good citizen would condemn the bombing and attack of innocent Americans at this ICE facility. But AOC doesn't see it that way, apparently, because she doesn't think Americans are innocent, and she thinks we're evil racist monsters, especially the ones working at ICE. That's why AOC previously called ICE detention facilities in the United States concentration camps, because she wants to compare us to the evil and murderous Germans of World War II, even though, of course, we're not like them at all, and we're completely innocent. And it's also worth noting that the bomber and terrorists who carried out this attack actually mentioned AOC's concentration camp comments. So with that said, it's pretty easy to conclude that AOC's over-the-top rhetoric is spreading and causing harm to innocent Americans. And she won't condemn those actions either because AOC thinks that these people weren't innocent in the first place.
Excuse us, we have to get to the minute.
Will you be condemning them? Do you feel like you have some responsibility in the attack with your rhetoric about concentration camps? Are you responsible? Do you feel ashamed?
She should feel ashamed. What she did and what AOC is doing is literally getting innocent Americans bombed and possibly killed. All for what though? Well, Alex is on a mission to protect people from other countries, who she clearly favors over actual American citizens. You know, the people in the country that she has sworn to serve in Congress. Alex doesn't care about us though, clearly, and that's why she won't condemn terrorists who bomb us and are obviously wrong. Lastly, let's finish up debunking the so-called squad by going over a video where the last member, Ayanna Pressley, well, here's the clip where she condemns black people if they don't side with her and the SJW Democrats completely.
Come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice.
So basically, she's saying if you're black, brown, Muslim, or an LGBT person, you better side with her and the extreme Democrats in her squad. Otherwise, you just need to shut up and stop talking. No speaking your mind and thinking for yourself is allowed with the left-wingers. If you don't agree with their horribly racist and anti-white and anti-American rhetoric to a T, well, you don't deserve to think or speak at all. And can you believe the crowd in the room during this video? Well, they were actually cheering this bullshit on? What a goddamn joke. The liberals have basically become beyond parody now too. So even though some of these quotes and clips from today may seem like they're possibly too extreme or stupid to be true, well, I assure you, they are. And I've got all the links and evidence down below in the description so you can see the proof of it. What do you guys think? Is this AOC squad as cringe as they seem to me? Will their radical identity politics-based platforms help the Democrats win in the long run? Or will their party continue to lose and get more and more extreme and out of touch with the everyday American citizen and voter? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.